We have risen from the ages. Blah. Wake up. We have risen from the ashes to school the masses. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Scholars of Wrestling Show. I am your man behind the microphone and your current Scholars of Wrestling World Heavyweight Champion. I am Scholar Jeff. Joining us this week, the OG Undisputed Scholar himself. He is Scholar Tarek. Scholar Tarek, how's your week been, sir?
My week has been fantastic. It is my son's birthday weekend, so I'm looking forward to that. And we got a great pay-per-view Revolution this past weekend. And we're continuing on the build to WrestleMania with, yeah, okay. Okay, it's an okay build. Is it? No. Yeah. No.
Well,
Yeah,
there's
no,
reasons.
yeah, no.
There's reasons for the meh build so far, but it'll ramp up. We got time.
And
Let's
we'll
hope
be
so.
covering it all bit by bit. Also joining us, as you just heard, the dulcet tones of another undisputed scholar. And it's all right, he is Scholar Brian. Scholar Brian, how's life treating you, sir?
Life's treating me pretty good. Still kind of find it weird that the guy down in the bottom left has a title that he's not willing to defend, but hey, whatever. We're all good here. Revolution, have some thoughts, but and yeah, the WrestleMania build has been pretty meh, but the main reason we're all here and into it is in Africa right now, so that kind of makes it really hard to do anything with that. And other than that, week's been pretty normal.
And with that, last but certainly not least, he is the self-described AEW Collision World Champion, your friend and mine. Last but not least, he is Scholar Pete. Scholar Pete, what have you got for us this time?
As I live and breathe. Hello, gentlemen. Good evening. It has come to my attention that I am a little bit insane, crazy, if you would. And the wise woman, JC, has told me that I need to calm down, that I need to relax. So everything is great, gentlemen. We just came off of a great AEW pay-per-view. My boy Ricochet is going to be on Collision this Saturday. And you know, your AEW Collision World Champion will be watching because, like my tag team partner, Scholar Jeff, we know what it's like to be champions. Now, the last thing I'll say, because we're at a calm, zen moment in our life, we're not going to freak out. We're not going to say that some of the matches in AEW was ridiculous. I'm looking at you, main event. But Scholar Brian, hello, sir. It's quite odd that you want this belt so bad, but you won't acknowledge me as your AEW Collision World Champion. Tag team partner, help me out here. What's going on with you?
Because here's the problem that I want to take that off of you so I can do what people do to non-existent titles and throw it back in the trash where it belongs.
Now, let's all play nice, kids, until it's time not to. Until that until that title eventually does get put on the line in some
All in.
capacity. eh, Wonders never cease and possibilities are immense.
I don't
Never
know. I think
know
that's a
until
little
you
too far
try.
away. I think that's a little too far away. There's another little show coming up in about a month's time. It's called Dynasty. Maybe he'll grow. Maybe he'll grow some ball hair by then.
Listen, listen. Scholars of wrestling fans, if you're enjoying this banter, please like and subscribe to the channel. But I mean, let's face it, gentlemen, right now, the decision is clear. I am not defending my AEW World Heavyweight Collision Championship I'm not
Oh,
defending it.
we're adding more words now.
I want to talk.
AEW Collision World Championship, the movie, the game,
Listen,
the
that's a
series,
wonderful thing. I love
the
movies.
animated series,
I love movies. Talk
the
to me about movies.
franchise. Well, okay, that's your transition. Okay. Well, you know what? Yes, we are absolutely going to talk about movies, specifically the latest big release of a pro wrestling movie. We are talking about, of course, Queen of the Ring. Now, real quick, I think I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Have either any of one else here gotten a chance to see this movie?
No, I don't have a life anymore.
Well, to
Oh,
be fair, this thing was a very limited release.
Yeah, I
But
think it was in something like 700 theaters, maybe. It's nowhere around me.
yeah, we found one theater by us that ended up carrying it. Just one. But I have to admit it was a very good I managed to go see it with my wife. It was actually a very good enjoyable movie. So, with that being said, I will provide a very brief uh
Well,
review
review?
of this. Yeah, I'll very brief review. I was looking at whether or not I was going to say spoiler free, spoiler safe, spoilers aplenty, yo
well,
ho
well,
ho.
s- my tag team partner. I have not seen this movie. To be frank, I haven't been to the movie since Beauty and the Beast was released in theaters way back when.
That is a
So,
dirty, dirty lie.
but
I think
please
he means the live action remake.
I'm so sorry for you.
That would still be a dirty lie.
listen. That's an argument of who's the AEW Collision Champion versus who's the AEW Dynamite Champion. It's apples and oranges. We all know who the real champ is. My question to you, sir, is sell me on this movie. What is making your everyday person who goes to the theater? What makes them want to check this movie out since it's such a limited run?
Well, I've
So
got a
spoiler free
feeling
review.
I'm going to go with spoiler safe since there's really not I'm not going to go too much into how certain things are executed because again, this we're talking about a historically based biopic, so more or less whatever you see in the movie actually did happen. So you can very easily look up the story of Mildred Burke, and you can more or less have the confidence that what you saw more or less did actually happen. There is a choice towards the latter portion of the movie that came under some scrutiny, but I will say I'm okay with it for reasons I'll get into later. Basically, there's if there's one thing that really surprised me about this movie is obviously this is a movie for the wrestling historian. You're if you're a big wrestling fan, you're going to get a lot out of this. However, if you're not a wrestling fan, that's okay too. This movie was definitely shot with you in mind as well, by virtue of the fact of it being a character drama, and it very well expresses and shows off the wrestling culture of the time and how professional the art of professional wrestling does work and has worked in the past. It's explained gradually, organically, things like works and shoots, faces and heels, but it also does it from a very human, grounded perspective where it just doesn't just like send you like a study guide right at the start of the movie and then just tells you how everything works and then, okay, figure it out, nerd. This movie doesn't do that. Instead, it focuses strictly on the characters and the expert casting. Mildred Burke herself is played very nicely and very charmingly by I don't remember the name of the actress, but she is I was actually wondering who is this actress? I know I've seen her around before. If you have ever seen the TV show Arrow back in the day, she played Felicity.
Oh,
Yes.
That's her, except a bit more buff to play Mildred Burke. So I'm like, again, not bad casting there, but it goes even further. I'd say to a good quarter to a third of the women wrestler cast are actually actual wrestlers. Uh, you brought in most prominently Camille as a constant threat to Mildred Burke and June Byers. You've got Naomi, who makes a brief appearance as one of the first black female wrestlers that are brought into the fold. And even if you're not a wrestler, every other person who's brought into this cast absolutely puts in their work. Uh, like some of them I didn't even know were actually in the. I forget her character's name or who she was playing, but suddenly I'm just sitting there watching, and all of a sudden Deborah Ann Wall shows up, and she's actually wrestling. I'm like, now
Huh.
I was first introduced to her through Daredevil. I know other people are introduced to her work through True Blood or something like that,
Mhm.
but I was really surprisingly impressed. There was one prominent character I really didn't know who this actress was, but as soon as she pops onto the screen, she just like immediately is like steel eyeing the Mildred Burke character, and she just has presence right out of the gate. I'm just like, okay, who is this person supposed to be? And then she introduces herself, Mae Young. I'm like, if granted, let's be real, we grew up on the Attitude Era. We saw when we think of Mae Young, we think of the old lady who gets thrown through tables and gives birth to Mark Henry's hand.
The classic.
Of course.
Absolutely. But they make her look like the grade A biggest badass in this entire movie.
And I believe she's played by Clint Eastwood's granddaughter.
If that's true, then it all checks out. Like, she is
Yeah,
easily one of the most engaging performances in the entire film.
yeah, I
Was
know
this
it's an Eastwood. I don't know the distinction, but it's in the family.
Yeah, if anyone while I'm talking wants to briefly go up to IMDb and see who the actress was that played Mae Young, it's she originally I thought you okay, you'll get she's the next in line to challenge Mildred Burke. There's gonna be a matchy match, it'll be great. But she ends up playing a pretty prominent role through most of the movie. Even Tony Storm, who plays the defending champion when Mildred Burke is first up and coming, she, of course,
Francesca Francesca Eastwood.
okay, there you go. This is my first time seeing her, but immediately she caught my eye. She puts in work, and she is a lot of fun to watch. And I think that's the biggest thing I can say about this movie. It's fun, but it's also very accurate and engaging in the same way that the Iron Claw was. I can see people can definitely come up with their reasons why they like the Iron Claw more than Queen of the Ring, or someone might like Queen of the Ring more than the Iron Claw.
how does it compare to the wrestler with good old Mickey Rourke?
I will say that
Because I feel that gives it more of a vibe. Just looking at it right now, I feel like this could be from Sundance Film Festival. But don't. But regardless of the fact, I mean, how this is shot, it just looks very shot, much like the wrestler was. At least,
I can see with like all the it's not nearly as heavy or hard to watch as the wrestler is. And that's the biggest thing difference I can say about it. It's just it's very well made, but it's a very different type of story. The wrestler was more of just like a fall from grace, tragic tale. This one, the only thing that was tragic about the movie was really just almost all of Mildred Burke's career happened before wrestling on television happened. That's the only, everything else is all very very triumphant for what it is. It's all framed very better. It's an easier watch than the Wrestler of the Iron Claw is. Whether or not you think it's better or as good is up to you. But I will say I had a lot of fun with this movie. Any it's a worthwhile watch for any scholar of wrestling, no matter where you are.
And I see Mickey James plays the fabulous Moolah.
She really isn't in the I think her role was cut because I really didn't
Uh,
see her too
I
much.
was looking at the cast list.
I didn't see her at all in the movie, frankly.
Okay. Oh,
There's so much, and for good reason, other attention allotted to the other characters, and of course on Mildred herself and her family.
mhm.
And
But
I shortchanged Francesca Eastwood. She's Clint Eastwood's daughter,
oh well,
not
there you go.
granddaughter, not granddaughter. So there is Hollywood royalty
And
in
that
this
you
movie.
and that makes all the sense in the world. She's definitely got that Eastwood swagger that makes you really like, okay, for fans of our generation who knew Mae Young back in like the early 2000s, it really made you wonder like, okay, now it makes you believe the hype. She isn't just like the one of the first. She is every bit the badass that she always was. But yeah, I would definitely recommend it. It'll probably come out on streaming sooner rather than later. And when it does, this is virtually mandatory viewing for any scholar of wrestling. It
I could
actually
see it
makes
going on Netflix.
it
Yeah,
actually makes more sense when I see that. Okay, they got in Jim Cornette to play the commissioner of the NWA, which if you've got Jim Cornette to do a speaking role in your wrestling movie, I think that tells you all you need to know about the quality of the film itself.
Mhm.
So yeah, with that, I'm going to give Queen of the Ring a 4.5 out of 5. Small goat face, I suppose, but in my mind, this is part of the trinity of modern wrestling great movies in everything we talked about. The Wrestler, The Iron Claw, and now it's joined by Queen of the Ring. If you ever get a chance, pay attention to where it's coming out and wherever it's streaming, let yourself be there and have a great old time. Bring the popcorn.
Put it as a box set.
You know,
well said, tag team partner.
someone is probably going to do that at some point.
Really put yourself in a depressive mood. Watch the Wrestler and the Iron Claw back to back. No,
And then watch Queen of the Ring as a palate cleanser. Even though there is some rough spots because Mildred Burke did have a rough life, but there's a more triumphant edge to it, a more hopeful one. So
Yeah,
that
it's like women's wrestling in the '60s, right? That's what '60s and '70s. That's
50s
what
act
this is.
more it's most of it
'50s,
is in
yeah.
like the
So it's like
50s. So
they're doing this like all of them had a hard life because it's like you're not getting any respect that you should have because you're a woman wrestling in the '50s. You're a woman doing anything in the '50s. You're not
but
getting the respect you deserve.
Mildred Burke did actually make bank and good bank. The only thing that she didn't have going for her is again, she came in right before TV started becoming a thing. But you do see her encounters with other people who would make it big on TV, specifically Gorgeous George, who ended up being pretty good friends with Mildred Burke the entire for years. And you'll see the guy playing Gorgeous George sort of end up popping up here and there all throughout the movie. It's very interesting, especially when you know how much of the story is actually true. So once again, an absolute must watch for any scholar of wrestling. Check it out when it hits streaming. Scholar recommended.
Awesome. Very good.
Well said, well said.
All right. Now
You want a
is where
real
we're
palate cleanser, though. We'll go watch Ready to Rumble after all of that.
Okay, the holy trifecta. Okay, you're allowed another one. But now is a time where we're bringing back to the present because we just got out of AEW Revolution and there were quite some happenings. I know that this seemed to be a show of extreme highs and extreme lows, but for me personally, when it comes to this show, speaking of women and wrestling, this is when I think of this show, I will always think of one match over all of them, and that is the Hollywood ending match between Tony Storm and Mariah May. Oh my good gracious. This I'm just going to cut right to this is my early pick for match of the year.
Yeah.
This was
Yep.
that good. I don't care, man, woman, I don't care who the hell you are. The entire AEW, Tony Storm, Mariah May just put in the work and they just declared to the entire industry right before WrestleMania time, okay, top that. Go.
And yes, I see an incredulous face in the crowd when Jeff said that. But you know what? It's the truth. All right. This entire show for me was good, bordering on great. The only issue that I had was card placement.
And that's
Match
the same
placement,
thing that everyone had after that. Like,
match
oof.
match placement on the card, because if the main event wasn't the main event, it would have been fine. It wouldn't have gotten the backlash that it got, because when you go into the final four matches of the night, all right, and you know that Mox versus Cope is going to be the main event because they announced that like a month ago. So it's like, and you realize when they go to Tony Storm and Mariah May that they still have Osprey versus Fletcher and Omega versus Takeshita. In between, it's like, you know that they're gonna shit all over this main event. All right. The obvious choice for main event, because of the build up, you had 3 years to build this up, and you've played it perfectly the entire time, except for the placement on this card. This is the one time where the main event should have easily been Tony Storm versus Mariah May. And
Yeah.
legitimately, and they played it like that. They wrestled in that match like it was the main event of the show. And it should have been. Now, I understand why at first the main event was what it was, because apparently there were plans to do other things at the end of that match, and it would have been a big deal and all that. But instead, it turned a pay-per-view main event into a TV main event that is still an all right TV main event. Not a good or a great one. It's fine. But on a show like this, you can't have a fine, you can't have an okay main event after what you just saw 3 times over. And let's face it, the first 4 or 5 matches up into the Hurt Business Outrunners match were great too. And the Hurt Business versus the Outrunners did what it was supposed to do. You got it. You got the Outrunners on pay-per-view. You got the huge pop, and you let the Hurt Business do what they do. And so it's like everything that was there did what it was supposed to do. And if it was in a better order, the main event wouldn't have been shit on as much as it was.
And it really did seem like AEW as a whole was really basically copying to it since it came up. Like being gentle, of course. Like, okay, yeah, hindsight's 2020, yeah. But really, it's almost like this match, the Hollywood ending was so good that I'm willing to look past and even forgive all of this show's flaws. I was I went back and watched this match again, and I was enamored. Like I love it when conventionally attractive women are willing and able to put together an absolute bloody brawl like this. This was one of the best hardcore matches I've ever seen. Like I have never seen even experienced deathmatch guys like wrap their hands in sticky tape and dip their fists into broken glass and just be like kumite whatever
and
like
then just starts swinging.
that
It's it's
it
it's
almost
like they're
felt
they're
it almost felt
they're
like
actually
Hell in a Cell, like the Mankind Undertaker Hell in a Cell. Like there's that sense of how the hell did they pull this off? Are we ever going to see anything like this ever again? Probably not.
it legitimately felt like you were watching the end fight of a movie, which I know is what they were going for. But it's like these these women were fighting to the death. They were doing things that you would not do in like a first or a second battle. Like as we said, the dipping the hands in broken glass and then just coming up and starting swinging. It's like you had the shot of Tony Storm, and you figure out that she is busted open. Like I've never seen a woman bleed like this on wrestling TV. On wrestling TV,
And it was
like
awesome.
stuck pig. She was on the muta scale. I promise you.
She absolutely was. They both were. And it was so damn cool.
Let
It
me tell
was
you
for
this.
Yeah, it's
some
like,
for someone who was not a fan of death matches. This definitely was one of those matches where I'm just going, Jesus, these two are really there to make a statement. And I do agree, this match should have been the main event. So you can't really have a better ending for an event than having the Titantron just put out the end. And I'm just like, oh, I can't
it's like
wait.
how did you fail? How did you fuck up that opportunity?
Mhm.
Eh, eh, Let me tell you something. When it comes to AEW, your AEW Collision World Champion will always be here to represent for you, the people. When I defend my belt soon.
Yeah,
But
okay.
Are we
let me tell you
talking
something.
about soon like regular time soon, like next week soon, or are we talking like the biblical soon?
Listen, in 500 BC, I defended my belt, and in 3000 AD, I'll defend my belt again. Let's talk about the Tony Storm
500
that
BC, you weren't even a sperm yet.
When the flood comes, the last thing you're gonna hear is, "I'm putting the belt on the line right now."
do we have all the animals on the ark? Now let's talk about Tony Storm first and Murat. Like this, let me tell you, when it comes to feuds and just everything that's going on in AEW, we talk about like the Death Riders and how it's just not working with them. Let me tell you, it's the thing that I feel like, and please go with me, scholars. I hope you dance with me here. But it's like when Penta came to WWE and just the love and the care they showed for Penta with his entrance and his aura and him just being Penta. And I feel like that's AEW with Tony Storm. Like she comes in, it's black and white. The entrance, people lose their minds. This woman is fantastic. Mariah May is fantastic. This match, from what you gentlemen have been telling me, is a must-watch match, which is now on my list. Like, these women show why that AEW women's division is so strong. So please, Mercedes Monet, you could stay with the TBS championship, because when you get this match from two professional women, like, and that you guys say should have ended the match. Absolutely fantastic to both women. Credit to them. And like I said, I love this Tony Storm character. I think she's the strongest character written in AEW right now. And I wish she would come on Collision more.
Of course you
And it
do.
was legit. And it was legit a three-match heater, because right after that was Takeshita versus Omega. Then right after that goes into Ospreay versus Fletcher. What were they gonna do? What were Mox and Cope gonna do? What are
And
we doing
Christian.
here?
And come on.
Hey, say what you will about the main event. I'm just glad they finally got rid of that contract. Like, let's be real. Christian Cage was never going to win the AEW championship, and nor should he. I mean, no, everyone likes him. Like, oh yeah, he's a good hand, a good worker, like whatever. But he just isn't the draw that some other people are. I just can't get invested in him. So it's like
If they
this.
did it when he was at the height of uh, his dead father powers, then yeah, maybe it would have worked. But that died out a little. That died out. That died out like how far did that die out? Like a year ago?
It died out
When
when Killswitch had to leave.
yeah, and hey, prayers up for you, big dog. I know that pneumonia's rough.
Yes.
Let me tell you, coming as the biggest Christian Cage fan, don't believe me. I had the theme song for Backyard Wrestling. Y'all remember that?
Oh,
But
yes.
I digress. Let's talk about how, Edge should not have been in that match, and that Scholar Jimmy, who's not here, unfortunately, cannot defend that Christian is better than Edge. That's all I wanted to say on that matter.
Well, I mean, it's okay to be wrong, but
Who's the champion?
not
Well,
you.
well,
Do it till
apparently
you love.
Moxley still is, and apparently I'm not sure if this is because of the reaction that it got, or this was legitimately the plan the entire time. Supposedly next week on Dynamite, uh, Moxley versus Cope, a rematch has been set for next week on Dynamite. That's something we just heard
which
this
is
week on Dynamite.
which is a
So
street fight, which is what this should have been in the first place.
Okay.
But
With
yeah.
when it comes to the pay-per-view all in all, for me personally, like a lot of a good chunk of these matches are definitely match of the year candidates, from Kenny Omega to Keshta, from Will Ospreay, Kyle Fletcher, from Mariah May and Tony Storm. I'll even I'll look at it from a character standpoint, MJF and Hangman Adam Page, which the second it was revealed that they were opening the show, I was just like, well, we're all wrong with this one. Obviously, Hangman's gonna win, but the overall uh, pay-per-view was definitely reaching that point where I'm just going, this is hands down one of the best wrestling pay-per-views I've seen in a long time. And when it comes to the main event, it was at a point. It's like, yeah, it had to follow up on all these matches, but we also got to remember the fact no one was really into the story going into this show. It was a very lackluster build. It didn't just have these great matches that came before it. It had basically, it's like, okay, show, like, you have something to prove of being in this main event, other than just it's because it's the world title. And even with that said, it was a very, very boring match. even if they didn't have the Christian cash in, I actually still would have thought it was just a very lame ending because in the end, I didn't want either guy, Moxley or Cope, to be champion by the end of this. Now looking forward to see now pretty much a good number of people are really wanting to go after that world title from your number one contender, Swerve Strickland Ricochet, which again was an I won't go as far as match of the year, but it was definitely a great match. Those two work so well together, and just the ending with Prince Nana getting the robe back, just again beautiful. It's just great storytelling. It's nice to see. It's nice to see Ricochet, as I said last week, as I was putting in my prediction, really is going to let this character grow before he can really go for a major world title like the AEW World Championship. Yeah, the tag team match was a weekend was a weak point because it was definitely more TV match. It was very much following the formula of the Hurt Syndicate being the unstoppable force, but not as much as what they did with the Guns and Private Party. But I still enjoyed it because I really like the Hurt Syndicate. I love Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin. I'm still hoping for Cedric Alexander to join them at some point. I
just
don't
don't
know.
know if they're. I don't know if he's going to do that because of what happened with his wife.
Fair. That's fair. I guess it's just I guess it's just the wrestling fan in me is like, oh, what they were in
Oh yeah,
WWE. I want that. I want that full one
oh yeah,
in
no doubt.
AEW. But again, fair. But yeah, all in all, I think the part that really like hurts me about this pay-per-view is that most people are going to look at this event as it's like you are how you leave them. And because they left us with such a weak match, that's all people are really gonna, at least most people are gonna talk about. It's like, oh, we're not gonna talk about the whole event, which was all in all a very great event. But no, we're just gonna talk about the fact that it was a very lackluster ending. And it was mainly just used for just so they can get rid of that contract. But I'm not going to be one of those guys who's going to look at it's like it's not how you leave them, it's just what you give them the entire ride. And when it comes to the entire ride, I loved every second of it.
So with all that
Yeah.
being said, what would you give this in terms what would you rate AEW Revolution in on a beard rating scale? Uh Tarek, let's start with you. What would you give it?
Before the main event, it was going to be a full on goat face, but I wasn't like as angry about the cash in. I actually, when the cash in happened, I was just hysterically laughing at it because I'm just like, oh man, this is just great, but not in the way they're wanting it. But even beforehand, I was just not into the match. I didn't want either guy to be world champion. Now I'm kind of now with what happened on Dynamite. Like, oh, just as Brian put in our chat after the event, he's like, just pull an audible and just give Swerve Strickland the championship. Now that we have Will Ospreay saying he wants to go for it at All In, I'm just like, uh, oh, Swerve or Ospreay, Swerve or Ospreay, Swerve or Ospreay. I don't know. I
We're
guess I
gonna be
would
back
lean
on that. It'll probably be
exactly.
Osprey because Swerve uh, beat him to begin with.
Mhm.
But yeah,
So in the end, you could just take that Darby Allen thing completely out of it because I didn't want it
no,
to begin with, and I don't.
if he wants to climb a fucking mountain, let him climb a mountain. He's not world championship material if he wants to do that instead of win a major feud.
Exactly. So with that audible, I'm like, okay, I'm good with Will. But when it came to that match, it actually took a whole star away. I'm gonna give it a solid full beard 4 out of 5.
All right. And Scholar, let's go with Scholar Pete. What did you think of it? What would you give for a rating for AEW Revolution?
Scholar last place in predictions. Scholar, your quote unquote AEW Collision World Champion.
Listen, who are you
What a way to
pissing my
represent the
oatmeal?
AEW, sir.
First of all, I am the champion. I only do things on purpose, and I purposely wanted to tell you boys that I want to. Do you hear? Did you hear my predictions? Do you hear how crazy I was? That I
You said
didn't think
Brody
that
King was going to win. What's wrong with you?
exactly. You think I'm gonna give you my secrets? You think I'm
That was
going
also a
to
great match, by the
defend
way.
what?
That was also a great match, by the way. Okada, Brody King. That was also a really great match. I actually realized I forgot to bring that up, but yes, that was also a really great match.
And that was so I give this a 4 out of 5, a full beard. I just wish that, like you boys said, maybe figure out how to end a pay-per-view a little bit better. But you know what? That's because they didn't have your AEW Collision World Champion on. What's up, my tag team partner? You have to say something? How great I am?
I have to say that, well, those are certainly strong opinions from a big, strong boy. But I will say I do agree with your take on AEW Revolution. I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5 full beard. The ending, yeah, it hampered it quite a bit, but it did also have a lot of great stuff, including what is still going to be my early pick for match of the year, and that takes a lot. Scholar Brian, are we forming consensus here?
We are forming a consensus. As I said, first four matches were great. Enjoyed myself all the way through. The tag team match did its job admirably. It was never supposed to be great, so I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it being what it was. Okay, then you had the three-match heater, and then you had the main event, which was what it was, and you put it in a death spot where nothing they would have been able to do would have measured up, and what they were able to do did not do the job at all. So yeah, you leave with a bit of a sour taste in your mouth, but it doesn't take away from the greatness that was the first 8 matches of the show. So yeah, it does take away from the goat face that it was going to be, but full beard still isn't that bad. So strong 4 out of 5.
For sure. And then, of course, leading up into AEW Dynamite, the fallout from all of that, AEW wasn't done. They were priming things up for the upcoming Owen Hart tournament, with Will Ospreay declaring his name for the Owen Hart tournament, and quite possibly the one of the more bigger highlights of that evening. We officially got the AEW debut of Speedball Mike Bailey. Definitely AEW coded for a while.
And legitimately the first time I ever saw him wrestle, so I finally figured out what the hype was.
You can count me among that number as well. I have never actually seen a Speedball Mike Bailey match, but he definitely fits the AEW vibe very well.
Same. It was my introduction. That's a 3 for 3. That's my introduction to him as well. Again, to repeat everything said, it's like, yeah, okay. I see where all the hype comes from. I enjoyed it. Do I think he's going to be going for the international championship against Kenny Omega? Probably not. I'm trying to look at this lineup, or at least trying to remember it off the top of my head. I don't see Ricochet winning it. Who else is
I
in this?
honestly, I honestly do see Ricochet winning it because Kenny Omega needs a heel opponent, so it's not going to be Orange Cassidy.
What are the matches for Collision?
Ricochet versus Hitsukiro, or what?
Okay, you know what? Yeah, if anything, I definitely see. Yeah, you know what? I could see Ricochet going at least for the finals. If they still want to keep the momentum of this character going, then it makes sense that he would be at least be one of
I
the
can see
finalists.
him. I can see him being the in between challenger between. I can see him challenging at the Dynasty pay per view to be the go between, but to get Omega and Okada at All In.
Merge those belts, baby. Merge those belts. That's all I got to say about that part. Merge those belts. Make me a happy scholar.
That does seem like it would be absolutely right up your alley. Whether or not I think they will or they should, I'm still mixed. I don't hate the idea, but it's not really clicking to me just because it seems like they on the one hand they seem to incorporate different niches in the title scene in AEW, but on the other hand, I'm always a fan of lesser or fewer title belts because the more titles you add to wrestling, it just sort of dilutes the power and the energy and the significance of the ones that actually matter. Wouldn't you agree, Scholar Pete?
I mean, I wouldn't have said it better myself. I mean, of course, I am a true champion, fighting day in and day out.
Are you?
But
No, as a matter of fact, he is in fact not. There's only one world champion in Scholars of Wrestling, and I think we all can agree with who that actually is.
I believe the wise woman would argue that fact.
And we'll
Hey,
just sit here with our popcorn hiding on top of our little undisputed scholars mountain and watch the two champions fight it out.
At this point, like watching those two fight it out, my main goal is to like slowly like catch up to Charlie being in the lead of Scholar of the Year points. Like
Yeah, we
he
need to
wants to
get
go
our
ahead and declare himself an future undisputed scholar, or just be like coming in and just going, "Oh, are you sure about that? Well, let's put that to the test, man. Let's have you really try and fight for this title of being undisputed scholar. We have our own mission, Brian. Let them
Yep.
have their fun."
We need to
oh,
take down Charlie. We need to regain our place.
well, it seems like there's a lot of that going on around here. When we look to this past week's Monday Night Raw, we got the return of Roman Reigns, who ended up interrupting the CM Punk Seth Rollins match and just beating both guys down. Did I miss something here,
I mean,
or did this just sort of come out of nowhere?
it didn't
Well,
come out of nowhere. The Royal Rumble set this up. CM Punk eliminated Roman Reigns, and then Seth. It was a whole thing where all three of them eliminated each other, and then Seth Rollins took out Roman Reigns with the curb stomp. So we haven't seen him since then. So that's why he attacked Seth Rollins, and Roman Reigns and CM Punk have been going at each other since they've been taking pot shots at each other since he came back. So it didn't come
I'll
out of nowhere. It made
I'll go
complete
one
sense.
step.
And I
I'll
called
go.
that he was going to come. I called that he was going to come out during the steel cage match because there's no way that's going to have a clean ending.
Oh, it was clear as day when they announced this match that Roman was going to return on this one. But I'll go one step further with the with it not being out of nowhere. It was with Roman's case. against Seth. He was mainly aiming for Seth Rollins for the curb stomp at Royal Rumble. He mainly attacked CM Punk because it was at the second he saw that Paul Heyman was basically coddling him, just trying to take care of him, and he was just going, "Excuse me, that's my wise man. You don't. He's mine. I know you guys have history, but he's not your wise man. He's my wise man, and I don't want to share my wise man. So I'll just go ahead and throw your ass on the cage and spear your ass because again." I get to coddle Paul Heyman and just go, mine. He's not yours. I'm trying to think of how to do that baby plucky. He's my wise man. He's not your wise man. He's my wise man.
And in order to make sure he stays mine, I'm going to leave you dead in the middle of the ring.
Wise men go down the hole.
And thus you have your first night's main event of WrestleMania. A triple threat between Roman Reigns, CM Punk.
Yeah, especially since Jey Uso in the media said, I don't care whether I'm main eventing or opening the show. I'm going to make it a night to remember. And it's like, okay, so you're the curtain jerk. Got it.
So you're opening the show. Got it. No,
God, I can't.
CM Punk's main event of WrestleMania.
I'm like, it's like, we knew that wasn't going to main event, but you don't confirm it in the media.
I'm just watching that. I'm just watching that story and I'm just going, Jesus Christ, this is your world heavyweight title picture? God, Gunther could be doing so much better.
And legitimately, if that's not the main event, you can't have Jey Uso go over. I'm sorry. Can't do it. Makes no sense. And I realize you want to get
Gunther to just destroy him even more.
I realize that Chant got over, and he's one of the most over people in the company. But you're gonna find out real quick if he wins that it's not gonna work.
Yeah, this whole conversation is making me very, very curious about what they're actually going to do with not just Jey Uso versus Gunther, but also just Jey Uso as a whole. Like, he's still very much over. People love eating. But now I find myself wondering, like, okay, how far are they actually going to go with this, and how much trust do they actually have with him?
It would just be such a step down trying to build prestige of that world heavyweight title if Jey wins. Because now Gunther's really was just starting to get back on his footing as trying to actually do with the world heavyweight title that he did with the Intercontinental Championship. So I'm just looking at this and I'm just going, you're basically pulling the same bit over and over again. Jey Uso takes down Grayson Waller and Austin Theory, which now that you have those guys and Alpha Academy as part of this storyline, and you're just going, these guys are like bottom of the barrel in the ranking system, and you're putting them in the world title picture.
And I want to make it completely clear. I like Jey Uso. Okay, this isn't one of those things where it's like I'm completely shitting on the guy, but it's like, look, there are clear main event guys, and there are guys that got lucky enough to get a chant over and are hitting above their weight class in terms of main event status and all that. Okay, and that's where I feel that Jey Uso is. I do not think he's a long-term main event player.
No.
And him and yeah, giving him a shot is fine. Okay, but at WrestleMania, I've always felt like this. I didn't like what had happened with Drew McIntyre last year. And if you're not in the main event going for a title, going for the top title of your brand, and it's not the main event, that means that they don't have trust in you as a main event guy. That's like a short sign of we trust you to have a title match on WrestleMania, but we don't trust you enough to be a main event player at WrestleMania. So it's like, okay, so why do we think he's getting the title if they don't
It's
think he can
just for
main
the
event the
moment.
pay-per-view?
It's I compared this to them giving Zack Ryder the Intercontinental Championship just for the moment. That's all this would be for. Because I will second what Brian said. I like Jey Uso. I like seeing him yeeting with everyone. Granted, Paul McAfee and Michael Cole doing it kind of is like a little overkill, but I digress.
I
But
will say I do have one other possibility that's springing up to mind why a title change what would happen. Not so much that maybe they want to give the nod to Jey Uso, but a title change would also do something else. It would free up Gunther to do something else, like
But the,
perhaps challenge for the WWE Championship, maybe.
yeah, but that's fine. But it's the whole thing is you're trying to make this title that he's holding right now a big deal, or you were. I don't know what you've been doing on this run because it's really Gunther should be a huge deal, and really, when you think about it, he should have been up in the running for the John Cena part of the show. He should have been big enough in the fans' minds and the WWE's minds where there wouldn't have been a clear choice of who John Cena would be fighting at WrestleMania. But by the time the Royal Rumble came up, it had to be Cody because they had fucked over Gunther's reign so hard that John Cena getting that shot would feel like would it wouldn't feel as big as John Cena versus Cody. You already fucked over his reign long enough. You can't have him go out in a curtain jerker match against Jey Uso. You can't do it. You're gonna get shit on.
to be perfectly honest, he probably Gunther should have won that crown jewel championship, not Cody.
Oh,
I
easy.
actually think I think that's because it that did absolutely nothing for Cody because he was already at the full top. Gunther is still trying to climb and bring this world heavyweight championship with him. But then you have Cody, who again, like I just said, gains nothing from winning, and it just basically it just halted Gunther's momentum. Because to be fair, his world championship reign was at a pretty decent start. Because it was those things where his title reign was in the beginning making up for all the wrongs in his WWE main roster run to begin with the quote unquote fluke victory against Randy Orton and his loss to Sami Zayn for the Intercontinental Championship. So again, it was going in a really good direction. And then it pretty much peaked when he was going against the WWE champion because now is at that point where, okay, now you can look at these titles and they're trying to be on equal grounds. But the second Cody won that, it just stopped any kind of momentum that was being built. And then the prestige of that world title just going lower and lower and lower.
Because immediately after that, you put him in the Judgment Day vortex, and
You put
as
him,
soon
yeah,
as that, and that's where the world heavyweight title goes to die. So,
yeah. And yeah, he becomes the third wheel for that storyline. And again, I'm glad how they ended that storyline with him just going, wait a second, why should I have confidence issues? I'm the World Heavyweight Championship. I am above both of these guys. Why am I letting these two bother me so much? So, and then he just goes ahead and just like flips the switch and he just destroys both of them.
I mean,
So,
I don't appreciate all this Jey Uso hate. I understand it's not hate on the thing, it's about the title. But let me tell you something, gentlemen. It is quite clear to me that Mr. Yeet himself is going to be champion. And I would scream to his praises, but the wise woman would be mad. So all I have to say is Yeet and Gunther. I love me some Gunther. I feel like they just killed the world title. I truly feel this is not a spoiler. This is just fact. I feel like Cena's going to beat Cody and Jay's going to beat Gunther, and it's going to be the switch of now Jay is the top babyface making the people love, and now it's John Cena heel being the 17-time heel champion.
And I would
It's
be able to and I would be able to see that if it was the main event, which it's not going to be. So once
we
again,
don't know that for
I'm
sure.
sorry, Pete. I'm sorry to burst your bubble like this, but once again, it is okay for you to be completely wrong.
Listen. My boy Triple H over there at the headquarters, he said that anything could be a main event. Nothing is locked into being a main event.
Well, Triple H is also smarter than all of us, and he's been on the Gunther train since he first came into NXT. So if he's actually as smart as we talk him up to be, WrestleMania will not be the end of Gunther's reign. And really, I honestly think Jey Uso's yeet thing has peaked. If he wins, it's gonna be like the Daniel Bryan win.
Or
I
the Rey
hate to bring that.
Mysterio.
I hate to bring it up because they can. Who are his challengers?
Kane.
Daniel Bryan wins the title on the infamous WrestleMania 30, where he has two matches on Mania and wins the title in a great triple threat match. And then he's stuck with Kane for 3 months, and Kane injures him, and Daniel Bryan's never the same Daniel Bryan shows until vegan Daniel Bryan shows up and it goes all bad. And that's like a 2 year process. So it's like sometimes it is better to not win the title because at that point the WWE can show you that yeah, they're in it for the moment, which is what a Jey Uso win would be. But what do we have afterwards? Nothing for you. That's it.
You could have new challengers. Braun could come up and face him. You don't think Braun versus Jay, get that flesh.
Braun would need to win immediately. That's what I'm saying. There's
Now that he's a
nothing.
Paul Heyman guy, that
I'm
could possibly be.
I'm like, if you want a good reign for Jey Uso with what they have in the heel ranks right now, you don't have good options. It won't work, is what I'm saying. You'll get the WrestleMania moment, but the aftermath, it's not gonna work.
Well, we
Yeah,
certainly have a lot of alternatives for WrestleMania season coming up, and I can tell we're going to be paying a lot of attention to what's coming up and over the several weeks ahead because it looks like a lot of different scenarios could end up unfolding. But as far as this week's Monday Night Raw, any other noteworthy things that jumped out to you this week on the road to WrestleMania?
I think we're really in a holding pattern right now until John Cena comes back
Okay,
from his shoot.
I'm
Chad
glad you
Gable's
said
lucha
that.
mask. Chad
Oh yeah,
Gable's lucha mask.
that
That's
sort of caught me off guard. I'm like, oh wait, there's a masked guy now. Like, oh wait, that's Chad Gable. What am I thinking? Yeah,
Yeah.
Garcia.
I was like, that
Yeah,
just
it's like we're in that couple weeks in between like that. This was the worst time for John Cena to have to go on a movie shoot
Pretty much, yeah.
because now we're in a holding pattern, and it's like it's you don't get the explanation. You get Cody Rhodes cutting that fiery promo, but with no response. So it's just kind of hanging there, and that's what we're in this at this point. In
We're just
in
hanging.
in a week or so, it's going to ramp up, and we're going to get really into the meat and potatoes of this WrestleMania build. But right now, we're basically in a holding pattern.
and that'll pretty much do it, I suppose. I'm just glad I'm not the only one who had that notion. But yeah, there's something absolutely new happening every single week, and we're going to be covering it all. But this has been this past week in the world of professional wrestling. So, without that being said, now's the time we're turning it over to back to you, our fellow fans. What did you, if you got a chance to see Queen of the Ring, what did you think? If you saw AEW Revolution, do we have a potential match of the year candidate in our hands? Are we completely full of absolute nonsense? Will the US ever adopt the metric system? No matter what you think, let us know all across the internet. But particularly if you want to join in the conversation yourself, join us on the Twitter machines because we're sure not calling it X. Scholar Tarek, where can they reach you?
You can reach me at the Avatar.
Scholar Brian, where can they reach you?
You can reach me sitting on top of the mountain, refusing to eat at Atomic Beanpole.
All hail the
And
ring general, baby.
Scholar Pete, where can they reach you?
Of course, they can reach their AEW Collision World Champion and future na to Scholar Brian at Improv Pete.
And you can check me out at I'm Robbie Rage. And for all of these relevant social media links and much more, you can check us out at our link tree in the description box below. That's linktree/scholars of wrestling for more scholars goodness. But until that day comes, we are going to keep on being we are going to keep on walking that road to WrestleMania, but not before hitting a very special milestone. But we're going to be around for a while. We'll go into further about what that is next time because you know who we are. We are the Scholars of Wrestling, and you have just been schooled. You're welcome.
You're
You're
welcome.
welcome.
See you next time for episode 500.